They say the holidays bring people together. I always assumed they meant around a table, not into each other's laps. It was Christmas Eve. Lights were twinkling. The house smelled like cinnamon and betrayal. I came home early from a shift, figured I'd surprise my wife and kids with takeout and a goofy reindeer hat. You know, corny dad stuff. Instead, I walked into what looked like a scene straight out of a trashy soap opera. There she was, my wife of 15 years, curled up on someone's lap by the fireplace. Laughing. Cozy. Comfortable. Except that someone wasn't me. It was my brother. My younger brother. I dropped the bag of food. The styrofoam exploded like a grenade. Pad thai and spring rolls all over the carpet. And I just stood there. Time didn't slow down. It sped up. Rage isn't a slow boil. It's a flash flood. Before I even knew what I was doing, I lunged. Military muscle memory kicked in. My hands found his throat like it was instinct. North-south choke. Classic move from my army days. Used to take down threats. And in that moment, my brother qualified. I wasn't aiming to scare. I wasn't posturing. I was trying to end it. But right before my arms could finish the job, someone screamed. My mother, of all people, rushed in. She screamed words I'll never forget. Stop. If you do this, your kids will lose their father. I paused, confused, heart still thundering like a battle drum. What? I asked, still holding his neck in my grip. Their father? Then came the second bombshell. My mother, still panting, said the line that detonated what was left of my reality. You didn't even notice your kids were spending the holidays at his place. The chokehold broke. My grip loosened. Not from guilt. No, I still think he had it coming. But from confusion. My world was breaking apart faster than I could track it. And just when I thought I'd heard the last of it, my wife stood up, brushing off her skirt like she'd just sat on some lint and not my dignity. She looked me dead in the eye, with that same smug face she used when she won arguments about IKEA furniture, and said, "Yeah, loser. All the kids are his." And that, my friends, is when silence finally fell on Christmas Eve. I didn't scream. I didn't punch a wall. I didn't collapse into a dramatic sob. I just left, quietly, walked out into the cold night without a jacket, keys, or a clue what to do next. I was a man stripped bare, of a family, a brother, and a whole life I thought I'd built on bedrock, not quicksand. You ever have your reality rewritten mid-sentence? Like someone reached into your chest, deleted your entire fatherhood, and then asked you to sign off on the edit? Yeah, that was my Christmas Eve.so. There I was. Christmas Eve, 27 degrees out, walking aimlessly down the street in what used to be my #OneDad hoodie. Funny how fast that title gets revoked when you find out you're more of a guest star in your own family sitcom. No phone, no wallet, just a man and his shadow, and even that looked like it wanted to leave me. I didn't go to a bar, because I knew the temptation would be to drink myself into an episode of Cops. I didn't call a buddy, because my only real buddy was currently nursing the bruises I left around his throat. My brother, remember? Instead, I walked to a nearby 24-hour diner, sat at the counter, ordered black coffee, the kind of stuff that tastes like regret and cardboard. Perfect pairing. The waitress, probably in her 60s, gave me that look. The one that says, "You've been hit by a truck, haven't you?" And I nodded like she'd asked out loud. "Rough night," she finally said. I didn't have the heart to tell her the truth, so I said the first thing that popped into my head. "Yeah, wife didn't like the gift I got her." She nodded like she'd heard that before. "What did you get her?" I took a sip. Apparently, the wrong DNA. We didn't speak after that. 3 hours later, I went back to my apartment. Yeah, my apartment. I'd been staying there during the week for work, because we'd been taking space. Or so I thought. Turns out, she was just taking turns with my brother. The room was freezing. No Christmas lights, no tinsel, no fake cheer. And for the first time in a long time, I felt peace. Because when everything's burned to the ground, at least there's no more pretending. No more questions. No more trying. I sat in the dark and watched the sun rise through the blinds. I didn't cry. That's not bravado. It's just, there's a certain numbness that hits you when betrayal comes from inside your own bloodline. You don't cry because you're too busy rewiring your brain to make sense of it. That morning, I made a list. Not a resolutions list. A reconstruction plan. Step 1, DNA test. Confirm what I already knew. Step 2, lawyer up. Step 3, go full scorched earth. I wasn't going to chase her. I wasn't going to yell or make social media posts airing dirty laundry. I was going to do it clean. Quiet. Precise. If she and my brother wanted to build a little life on the ruins of mine, fine. But I wasn't handing them the bricks. People think betrayal breaks you. It doesn't. It just removes your blindfold. By New Year's, I had the test results. None of the kids were mine. Not one. That's when it really hit me. All those birthdays, recitals, scraped knees, and soccer games, they were all a lie. I had been a ghost dad. A placeholder. A warm body filling a cold role while someone else got the credit in secret. And here's the kicker. I was still paying child support. Because legally, I was still the dad on record. Imagine that. Paying monthly for a backstage pass to a life I was never really invited to. But I wasn't done yet. No. See, my strength isn't in breaking things. It's in walking away from the wreckage with my head high and my hands clean. You want war? I'll give you indifference. That's worse. So, I ghosted them all. Blocked every number. Deleted every photo. Changed my name on the utilities. You'd think I was the one in witness protection. And for once, it was quiet. No fake apologies. No crocodile tears. Just silence. Beautiful, brutal silence. The kind you can build something new in. It was a Saturday, about a year after the eve of ruin, as I sarcastically refer to it now. I'd spent the day doing nothing particularly important. Took the bike out for a spin, grilled a steak, watched a movie where the husband doesn't get betrayed by every single human being he's ever trusted. You know, fantasy. I was just kicking my boots off when there was a knock at the door. Now, I don't get visitors. I'd made sure of that. My address wasn't listed anywhere, and I didn't exactly leave a forwarding card at the post-apocalypse ruins of my marriage. I opened the door, and there he was, my older son. Or, more accurately, the kid I raised for 18 years under the illusion that he was mine. He looked older, somehow. Tired. Same blue eyes I used to think came from me. They didn't, apparently. DNA tests said otherwise, but try explaining that to your gut. It still clenches every time you see them. Hey, he said. Hey, I replied. That was about as warm as it got. He stood there awkwardly, hands in his hoodie pockets, backpack slung over one shoulder like he'd come straight from some college campus. And then he hit me with it. I need your help. Cue the sitcom laugh track. Except this wasn't a comedy. It was tragic, ironic, and mildly insulting. I've got student loans, he continued. And Mom's medical bills are piling up. She said you. I held up a hand. Stop. Just stop right there. He did. I could tell he was used to people letting him finish his sentences. Not today. You came here to ask me, the man who found out on Christmas that his entire family was a fabrication, to pay off your college debt and your mother's treatment? She's sick, he said. She was sicker when she cheated on her husband with his own brother. I said back, stone-faced. But I didn't see anyone offering me treatment. He looked stunned. Maybe he thought time healed wounds. Or maybe he believed the propaganda your mother no doubt feeds you when you're living in the house your dad used to pay for. I didn't know, he finally said. No. You didn't want to know? I corrected. Big difference. He looked down. Couldn't meet my eyes. Guilt started to crawl up his neck like a rash. Too little, too late. You were old enough to notice the weekend she was gone. The birthdays I spent alone because you all got caught up at Uncle's house. And now you want me to step back in and play ATM because the guy who actually fathered you didn't plan ahead. I thought you were my dad, he said softly. I was, I said, and my voice cracked just slightly, just enough to remind me I still had a soul under the armor. But that version of me died the night your mother introduced me to the truth. He stepped forward, a little desperate now. I didn't mean for any of this. I stepped back. I'm not your enemy, I said, but I'm not your savior either. And with that, I closed the door. Didn't slam it. Didn't yell. Just closed it. Clean. For a long moment, I stood behind it, heart thudding. And then I heard the footsteps fade. No knocking. No begging. Just silence again. You think I felt powerful, right? Like some triumphant cowboy riding off into the moral sunset. But no, I felt nothing. And that was scarier than rage. Because when you stop feeling anything at all, you realize just how much they've already taken from you. The next morning, I stood in the kitchen staring at the coffee pot like it owed me answers. Black coffee. No sugar. No cream. Just how I liked my mood these days, bitter and strong. The conversation from the night before kept replaying in my head, but quieter now. Like a bomb that already went off and left nothing but silence and soot. Funny thing about burning bridges. It lights your path just long enough to see where not to go again. That day, I made a decision. I was done reacting. No more playing defense against ghosts from a fake life. I was going on offense. No, not revenge. Been there, done that, or at least fantasized about it on the regular. I mean reconstruction. A full rebuild. Of me. Step 1. I changed my number. Again. Only this time I made sure no family member, blood or otherwise, would ever have access to it. Not unless I personally handed it over. Spoiler alert, I didn't. Step 2. I left town. Not dramatically. Not with a middle finger raised from a convertible like some Netflix antihero. Just quietly. One suitcase, one duffel bag, and a playlist full of blues, rock, and tracks that made me feel like the main character in a redemption arc. I settled in a small town 2 states over. Rented a cabin with more trees than people around it. The kind of place where the air smells like pine and second chances. The landlord was a retired Navy guy. Didn't ask questions. Just nodded when I said I needed quiet. Perfect. I got a job fixing up bikes, motorcycles, not the pedal kind. There's something poetic about taking broken machines and bringing them back to life. Maybe it was my way of gluing myself back together, one carburetor at a time. Every now and then, I'd meet someone new. They'd ask the usual questions. Where you from? You got family? I'd just smile and say, lost the map. And no, I ride solo. But here's the truth they never asked for. I used to be the guy who wore matching pajamas on Christmas Eve, stayed up all night building Lego sets, and believed love was a contract no one would ever breach. Now, I believe in contracts with torque specs and gasket seals. Because at least those don't lie to your face and sleep with your brother behind your back. But I wasn't bitter. Not anymore. That was the real twist. Somewhere between the move, the new job, and the steady rhythm of a life I actually controlled, I found peace. Not the fireworks kind. The kind that just sits with you on a porch swing at night and says, you're going to be all right. That's not to say the past didn't try to catch up. A few months after I moved, I got a letter forwarded from my old address. No return address. Just Dad, scrawled in handwriting that tried way too hard to look casual. I didn't open it. Burned it right there in the fire pit, actually. If it was an apology, I didn't need it. If it was a plea, I didn't care. And if it was a trap, well, I wasn't stepping in it. Because here's the real punchline. I had finally built a life where their forgiveness, or lack of it, meant nothing. They could call me cruel, cold, heartless. But I finally had one thing I never had in all those years of playing husband, father, and brother. Peace. Uninterrupted, unapologetic, undeniable peace. So there I was, in my garage, hands deep in a Triumph Bonneville that was more rust than ride, when my new landlord, Rick, Vietnam vet and professional grumbler, yelled out from the front porch. You got a delivery. Fancy envelope. Guy looked like he eats spreadsheets for breakfast. Well, great. I wiped my hands, walked out front, and there it was, a legal envelope. Heavy paper, thick with paperwork and thicker with old wounds. I didn't open it right away. Made myself a sandwich first. Sat on the porch swing. Savored every bite. Because after the life I'd lived, you learn not to rush into bad news. You sip it like cheap whiskey and brace for the burn. Inside, court summons. Apparently, my ex-wife, who, as you recall, had rewritten the cast list of my life behind my back, was now suing me for unfulfilled financial obligations related to her medical expenses and the shared support of the children I raised. Let that sink in. She cheated, lied, humiliated me, let me raise kids that weren't mine. And now she wanted me to foot the bill for the whole production like I was the executive producer of this farce. I laughed. Loud. Long. The kind of laugh that echoes off the woods and scares nearby birds. Because that was the moment I realized just how far gone they were. Not just morally, but mentally. They actually thought I'd play along. Again, I called a lawyer. Not the flashy kind with TV commercials and bad hair. I wanted someone lean, sharp, and just as disillusioned with humanity as I was. I found her in a nearby town. Retired prosecutor turned defense shark. Her name was Gwen, and she wore sunglasses indoors. Perfect. We sat in her office, and I dropped the envelope on her desk like a dead rat. Interesting, she said, thumbing through it. So they're claiming you have a moral obligation? Yeah, I replied. I also have a moral obligation not to set my truck on fire. But here we are. She smirked. You know none of this will hold up, right? You were never legally declared the father. In fact, You disproved it. This is harassment dressed in a lawsuit. I figured, I said, sipping her office coffee. Burnt. Bitter. Exactly like my mood. She made a few calls. Filed a motion to dismiss. And just for fun, she drafted a counterclaim for emotional distress, citing the DNA fraud and the financial damage I suffered under false pretenses. That's real. I asked. Oh, it's real, Gwen grinned. Judges don't like being lied to any more than you do. Over the next month, I kept my head down while she went to work. And let me tell you, watching someone else do the dirty work for you, when you've spent years cleaning up other people's messes, is the closest thing to vacation I've ever had. The day of the hearing, I put on a jacket for the first time in a year. Gwen said I looked like a hitman. I told her that was flattering. We walked into the courtroom, and there she was. My ex looking like she'd aged 10 years and spent every one of them trying to win a sympathy contest. Her lawyer looked like a man who hated his life and regretted every email she'd ever sent him. They didn't even make it to opening statements. The judge read the motion, looked at Gwen, then at me, and said, Mr. Freeland, do you have any remaining legal ties to this woman or her children? No, Your Honor, I said, voice calm and steady. Just some shared trauma. He nodded, looked at the other table, and said, You're lucky I'm only dismissing this with prejudice and not sanctioning your client. And just like that, it was over. We walked out. Gwen lit a cigarette like she was in a noir film, and I felt 10 pounds lighter. Not because of the win, because of the closure. They tried to drag me back into the wreckage, and I let the legal system slam the door shut for me. That night, I grilled another steak, drank a cold beer, slept like a stone at the bottom of a lake. Because when the ghosts finally get evicted from your past, you start to feel alive again. It was a Tuesday. Rainy. The kind of day where even the coffee seems reluctant to perk up. I was at the shop, mid-oil change, sleeves up, elbows deep in a Ducati with identity issues, when the bell above the door chimed. Didn't think much of it, until I turned and saw him. My brother. The same brother who once shared bunk beds with me. Who I taught how to throw a football. Who also apparently taught himself how to throw his body onto my wife. I didn't speak. Just wiped my hands slowly. Not because I was being dramatic, but because I didn't trust what I'd do if I didn't have something in my hands to ground me. Hey, he said, like this was a casual drop-in. You look good. I nodded. You look like you've aged about 5 lives. He winced. Good. Let it hurt. I came to apologize, he started. I know it won't fix anything. It won't, I cut in. He shifted on his feet like he wasn't expecting me to be so composed. But that's the thing about pain. Once it stops flaring, it calcifies. Becomes part of the armor. I was in a bad place, he continued. Your wife? I mean, she. Don't, I said, calm as a bomb defusal. Don't you dare try to share the blame. You were a grown man. So was I? I just happened to act like it. He looked down. I lost everything, too. Yeah. I said, well, at least you had something to lose. I lost a life that wasn't even mine to begin with. We stood in silence. The kind that gets heavy, like a thundercloud with nowhere to go. He pulled a letter from his jacket. This is from your oldest. He said he tried writing, but I didn't take it. Just stared at it, like it might bite me. After a beat, he placed it on the workbench, nodded once, and left. I didn't open it. I did burn it. Not out of rage. Out of preservation. Like clearing brush before it ignites again. A few months after that encounter, something strange happened. I laughed. Like a real one. Full body. Out loud. No hint of sarcasm. It was over tacos, if you can believe it. This woman I'd met at a local trivia night, Maya, had just roasted the quizmaster for mispronouncing chimichanga, and I lost it. She was sharp. Funny. Wore sarcasm like perfume. And when she found out I rebuilt motorcycles, she looked at me like I'd told her I moonlighted as a superhero. We started seeing each other. Slowly. Carefully. Like people who know how badly this can go. I told her everything. And I mean everything. She didn't flinch. Didn't pity me. Just said, damn. Remind me to never cross you or cheat on a test. She didn't want kids. She'd had her own heartbreak, and she was content with dogs and peace and weird indie films that made no sense. Worked for me. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't living in reaction to something. I was just living. I got a call one night from a mutual friend back in the old town. My ex-wife had passed. Cancer. Quiet. Fast. I didn't feel much. Not joy. Not relief. Just a dull ache. Like hearing an old high school burn down. A place where you had some good times, but mostly trauma. The funeral was small. I didn't attend. But apparently, one of the kids, my youngest, the one who used to leave drawings on my office desk, stood up and said, "My dad isn't here today. He's the one who raised us, but he's not on paper." Someone sent me the clip. I watched it once, then deleted it. Because forgiveness is one thing. But you don't walk back into the building after the fire's gone out just to admire the ashes that I bought a piece of land. Not big, just enough for a cabin, a view, and a workshop out back. No picket fence, no swing set, just open space. I built it myself. Slowly, over weekends, piece by piece. There's something spiritual about building something that no one else touched. No ghosts in the walls. No lies in the floorboards. Maya came by on weekends. Brought wine. Mocked my playlist. Made me feel like a man again. Not a character in a tragedy. I made a vow. Not a wedding vow. Not again. Just a me-to-me kind of thing. I'd never live a life where I was the last to know the truth. And I'd never again love someone who saw me as optional. Years passed. I didn't fade. I didn't retreat. I rebuilt. The betrayal? Still there. Like a scar. But scars don't hurt. They just remind you where the blade went in. Sometimes people ask if I ever reconnected with the kids. Nope. Not because I hate them. But because love, real love, requires truth. And they chose lies. Maybe because it was easier. Maybe because she sold it better. That's their road to walk. Mine? It's gravel, steep, but honest. Sometimes I still get asked what I lost in the divorce. And I always say the same thing. My house. My wife. My brother. 3 kids. A dog. A dentist I liked. Half my retirement. And the only decent walk we ever owned. But I still have my balls. And if you think I'm just talking about anatomy, then you haven't really been listening.